Good evening. Manhattan's district attorney has convened a grand jury connected to the criminal probe of former President Donald J. Trump to consider weighing criminal charges. Sources tell the Washington Post that the jury will also hear matters related to other executives at Mr. Trump's company, as well as the Trump organization itself. The panel was reportedly recently convened and will sit 3 days a week for 6 months. The grand jury signals that the district attorney, Cyrus Vance, believes he has evidence of a crime already in hand against the former president or someone else in his orbit. It comes after the New York Attorney General announced she's teaming up with the district attorney in a criminal investigation of the Trump organization. David Fahrenthold now, one of the Washington Post reporters who broke the story just less than 2 hours ago, and NBC News contributor as well. David, thank you. You described this investigation into the Trump organization as, among other things, expansive. What has Cyrus Vance been focusing on?
Well, it's what he's got that's so interesting. He's got more financial records, a deeper and more extensive record of Trump's business than anybody's ever gotten. He got millions of pages of Trump's tax returns and other financial documents. He only got those in February, so we don't know what he found in them. But we know a set of transactions that both the Manhattan DA and the New York AG have been honing in on, all of them having to do with whether Trump misvalued assets, misled either lenders or taxing authorities about the value of his assets to either get loans or to get a break on his taxes. That's what we know they're interested in. There could be other stuff that was in those taxes we haven't seen yet.
To do that, you'd have to go something far beyond the gray area, which is the reporting of taxes as related to real estate in New York.
You're so right about that. And I think that's one of the things that we're really going to be on the lookout for. Proving tax fraud, mortgage fraud, it's a hard thing to prove no matter what, because you often have to prove that somebody knew what they were doing. They knew what the law was, and they did it purposefully. And you're also right that this is an area where there's a lot of fudging and a lot of gray area. And that will probably be Trump's defense. Of course, I pumped things up when I needed to and deflated them a little bit when I wanted to. That's what everyone does. They're going to have to show that what Trump did was beyond even the sort of loose boundaries of morality in New York real estate, and also that he knew it was and did it anyway.
Now, we reported here last week that Trump's longtime money man, Alan Weisselberg, is under investigation himself. Is the thinking here that he could be brought before this grand jury, and further, that he could turn state's evidence and testify against him?
Well, from what we've been told, the Manhattan DA would certainly like him to turn state's evidence. And we talked about how they have Trump's taxes. Alan Weisselberg, who's in the rear of that photo there, he's almost the human equivalent of Trump's taxes. He's the guy through which almost all of Trump's financial transactions, big and small, have passed through for 30 years. So he would be a valuable asset if you thought there was financial crimes. And if you thought you could prove Trump's intent, you could ask him, Mr. Weisselberg, what did Donald Trump tell you to do? But as far as we know, Alan Weisselberg has not flipped, has not given damaging testimony against Mr. Trump. So it's possible he might be one of those ones who's the target of the grand jury investigation rather than a witness before it.
Technically speaking, a grand jury decides whether to indict. You can't get an indictment without a grand jury in a case like this. However, what matters is how the prosecutor presents the case to the grand jury. So often in these cases, the vast majority of cases, if the prosecutor says, here is the evidence, please indict A, B, and C on the following charges, that's normally what happens. Is that your sense of what's happening here?
Well, you certainly hear that reputation. You know, the grand juries will indict a ham sandwich if a prosecutor asks them to. In this case, you know, this is not your normal defendant. This would, if they choose to charge Donald Trump, this would not be your normal defendant. And I don't think it would be in the interest of democracy or Cy Vance or Cy Vance's office to have the grand jury indict Donald Trump on a weak case and that would get thrown out later, that Trump would beat in court. So I think that grand jury is one hurdle toward charging Trump. But I imagine, and what we've heard, I think this is true, that Vance is applying this hurdle to himself. He's not going to bring a case that he doesn't think he can win, not just before a grand jury, which applies a pretty low standard, but before a real jury, which would, you know, want an evidence beyond a reasonable doubt.
Right. Thank David Fahrenthold from the Washington Post, who broke the story along with another reporter from the Post just a couple of hours ago. David, thank you for coming in. Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.